our commercial base. It was one of the main ways to do it. So that was the initial reason, and I was involved in that initial beginning, so I know that's a fact. There's the whole sewer thing has so many different facets to it. The $400,000 basically does what we're mandated to do by the state in order to take the next step. We have to do a townwide survey, and the townwide survey will identify, as everybody said, the areas that require sewer because they have problems, and would also we put them in an area in a list of priorities as to the ones that need it the most or that are most important, and then and work their way down. The postal facility is another whole story. When they came into the situation, they had a problem. They wanted to be involved in it. They were going to put money in it and so forth. What happened to the postal facility was a complete change in administration. The people that we talked to, that we had all the agreements with, are all gone. So there's all new people there. What they had originally decided, what they originally wanted to do before they got involved with us, was to build their own plan. We wanted them to get involved with us because we wanted the money from them to build a plan for everybody, for the whole town. What we're putting together right now specifically excludes the post office if they don't get involved. In other words, we have no intention of designing for any flows from the post office if they are not part of the program. That's it. So the post office, if they bailed out, they are out of it all the way, and they will have to build their own plan if they want any part of this. So again, we're not catering to them in any way, and I think that's some misinformation that was put out there that's not correct. Again, there are so many different facets to this. I don't even, I couldn't remember them all, but all I can tell you is that this is an important project. We need to move ahead on this particular situation. If we're going to allow our district out on Concord Street, our industrial district, to grow in a clean way, this is one of the things we need to do. People talked about dumping things into the sewer. The sewer is monitored. If you've ever been to the Lawrence Sewer District, if you ever get a chance to go there, it may not sound like a great field trip, but it is probably the most interesting place you will ever go. It's got to be 6 or 7 stories underground. When you see what goes on in that place, everything is monitored coming in, going out. It is so closely checked. It's very well done. It's an amazing facility. We're not going to build anything like that. We're going to build something a little more reasonable in size, a package type plant, and perhaps 2. That's what we would probably do. MEPA, who's the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Administration, they are the people that say we cannot take any water out of the Ipswich River watershed. About 4 or 5 years ago, matter of fact, we were coming to town meeting up in the cafeteria up here, and we got our first look at the new overlay districts that the state came up with at that point, expanding the zone 1s and 2s and 3s around wells in order to protect the water, because they said in spite of everything that the people are saying they're getting more water in their basement, the water levels in the Ipswich River watershed have been dropping steadily. They had to stop that. We talked to them about the fact when we wanted to hook up to the MWRA, we said, we're taking water in from Andover. They said, good, take in more, because the water levels are dropping here. So that's why we can't take any water out of this watershed. It can't be done. So we're going to have to build package treatment plants. We're going to put the water back in to the ground in a leach type situation, which is in fact a very safe way of doing it. It is treated in a package plant far more than it ever is in your average septic system. So what is put into the ground is far cleaner product when it gets to the infiltration process than it ever is coming out of a standard septic system. So, I mean, there are so many facets to this. I don't know what to, where to begin with it all. But I will say that it is an important process and that we need to carry it on.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Gentleman in the aisle, please state your name and address, sir.
Glenn Leslie, 16 Lindor Road. I support having sewers in the town and the sewer district, but I don't understand this and I don't support this because it seems that we're spending $400,000 and no one knows what or how this money is parceled out or whatever. The most important thing that I've got from all of this from Mr. Hanlon is that it seems he's done all of the research, and it seems he did a very good job at the research. It seems that we know where we have to do this is one of 2 places. I don't understand why we want to spend $400,000 for something that's common sense that we already know has to be done in certain places. So why don't we spend this money by having engineering firm come up with a game plan, alternate plan A and alternate plan B for the two sites that we have, and not waste time and not waste $400,000 on something that we already understand and realize that exists. And let's move forward with this thing instead of spinning our wheels on another needless report.
Lady at the microphone, please state your name and address, ma'am.
I thought Mr. Hanlon might want to answer
Could you
that
please
question.
state your name and address?
Lita Jenny, 6 Shore Road. I'm a member of the Martins Pond community. I've been active in the Martins Pond Association and the Reclamation Study Committee. I'm very much in support of this, and it's not just because it's my neighborhood. I've already spent myself in the last year $15,000 to put a new septic system in. This isn't what I need, this is what the community needs to keep the quality or improve the quality of the lake for the whole town, not just for my neighborhood. And there's just so many things that have been said, I'm trying to remember what I need to respond to. Mr. Will Smith said something about why didn't FUMP talk about this? This isn't a facilities use master plan. This isn't a facility existing building. Why would they discuss it? As far as education, it's not an either or. I'm very much in support of education, and I'm going to vote for those spending things too. But if we want money to build these schools, we're going to need the Concord Street district street area to be sewered in order to bring in buildings that'll bring us in a tax base. That's where we're going to get our money. And that's all I can think of right now, but I'm very much in support of this. Please vote for it.
Lady right behind you, please state your name and address.
Janet Nicosia, 2 Poplar Terrace. First, what Warren Pierce said, we've been talking about sewers for a very long time, long before the postal facility became an issue. The people of Martins Pond, the Martins Pond Association, we had meetings with members of the CPC. We've talked to Joe Vino about it for years. This is not something that the postal facility brought to the table. Now, maybe that the fact that they put $100,000 on the table started the process going. On the talks about this vote from the past, it kind of bothers me that we would hinder progress because of a grudge we hold about a vote that wasn't passed years ago. Why are we bringing that up? That vote is over. We're here now to try to do something good. And on the answer of passing the buck, not that everybody agrees with that, the people of Martins Pond have extremely small lots. You need to drive by. You don't, if you think they can put in a septic system that could comply with Title V in any stretch of the imagination, drive around, because they just can't. We have several abandoned houses right now because of non-compliance with Title V, and the people simply have to move for whatever personal reason and cannot put a septic system in. People who want to improve their homes cannot improve their homes, because as soon as you go to add a room, renovate in any way, you have to show that your septic system complies with Title V. These people are held hostage by this situation. They need the septic system. They need the study. Unfortunately, we have to spend $400,000. It sounds like $20,000 a year to me. It's not $400,000 this year, am I correct? So it's $20,000 a year we're looking at. We're looking at $20,000 tonight. We're not looking at $400,000. It's $400,000 over the next 20 years. Another problem with the Martins Pond area, and I only address that because I live there, is that we have high water marks that go into people's living rooms. The septic systems fail on a regular basis. We have had, since I've lived there, which is, I don't know, maybe it's 10 years or less, we've had 2 major floods where Burroughs Road has been closed down. Sewage has been coming out of the toilets and into the street. This is not a situation that is something that can be lived with. These people can't live with it. I don't care about the postal facility. I'd be happy if they had their septic system, that's fine. But I care about the people of North Reading.
Gentleman behind, please state your name and address.
Jeff Simons, 31 Hickory Lane. The other evening, I and many people spent an excruciating amount of time at the school committee meeting, trying to come up with very, very painful, giving input to it so that they advise them on making some very, very painful cuts. And I want to repeat something tonight that I said then, which was that what we have in North Reading in order to fund the level of services that we all think we ought to have to implement the facilities utilization master plan, we have a revenue problem. We don't have an expense problem, we have a revenue problem. And this seems like a very wise investment in order to begin to develop the plans to increase our base of commercial revenue into the town so that we don't have to, so that we can perhaps avoid some more of these very, very painful cuts, lack of growth, all of us think are important. We'll be getting into maybe later tonight or Thursday night. Let's start moving, not wait, and just get ahead with this sort of a project so that we can begin to develop the commercial base in town here.
Mr. O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I was one of the majority members of the Board of Selectmen to support this particular article. And for a whole host of reasons that have been stated tonight, I think it's rather obvious as to why we have to move forward. But one that maybe isn't clear in everybody's mind is that, again, we have to have this environmental impact report done in order to make the proper decisions, or any decision as far as moving forward on this particular program, whether it's going to be the type of plant that Mr. Sylvia likes, or whether what I like. You still have to have these particular reports to be done. We have the opportunity to secure a no-interest loan of $400,000, $20,000 a year for 20 years if we do it tonight. If we wait until next year, just from a strictly cost standpoint, at 2%, it's going to cost you another $86,000 over 20 years. If you wait and we get to 3%, it's going to cost you $136,000 more. In the meantime, we're still not going to get any answers to the questions that we have to have. As far as the past action of town meeting, I was moderator at the time when we had that vote on the South Essex Sewerage District. I think that was 1976, 76 we've been talking about that. And again, whatever the action of the town meeting, the town administrator, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, anybody at that particular time, again, that's history. We can't change that. When it comes to whether or not we wanted the postal facility here in the first place, I was on the Board of Selectmen 10 years ago, or a little bit more, 1988, when they came in and they leased that property and moved in, and they offered us nothing. Nothing. And yeah, am I angry with them? Yes. Is that going to cloud my vision as to what we're going to do? It shouldn't, and I'm hoping that it's not. They offered $100,000. Was I quick to take it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Am I ashamed to take it? Absolutely not. Because to me, they have not given this town enough in the past, and even going forward, they're not going to give us enough, and they've just been avoiding the situation. They now have a situation over there that they have to deal with. And our solution and our study is not going to solve their problem in a reasonable amount of time. They're going to have to deal with it anyway. But in the meantime, I'll take the $100,000, which we did, and did the first phase. This is the next phase. The important point to realize here tonight is this requires a 2/3 vote because it's bonding. So think seriously if you're thinking about opposing this right now. We need a 2/3 vote, not just a simple majority. And if we're talking about moving forward, not living in the past, and licking our wounds and blaming other people, let's have a little bit of vision as to where we're going to take this community going forward. And these are solutions that have to be made and have to be resolved. This is not something, this isn't a matter of choice. It's just a question of whether we're going to postpone the inevitability of it all, or we're going to take advantage of the funding that's available at a 0% interest rate. And to me, I think it's a very reasonable price for us to pay at $20,000 a year going forward. So again, I would urge you to please vote in favor of it. The majority of the Board of Selectmen was in support, and I understand the arguments against, but I still think when you put it on the scale, it weighs very heavily in favor of taking advantage of this particular opportunity and moving forward with this particular phase, as it was pointed out by Mr. Hunt and other speakers, to take the money and get the study done. Regardless of what we're going to do, we need the information to move forward. So I'd urge you to please vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Gentleman in the aisle, please state your name and address, sir.
Michael Scannell, 44 Burroughs Road. I want to address my comments mainly to those folks that may be thinking about voting against the warrant, and particularly those that may not live in the Burroughs Road area. I think that it's very easy to sort of paint this into a your neighborhood versus my neighborhood kind of argument, and then the folks that are going to live near where the treatment plant may be going to be built may have an attitude of not wanting that in their backyard. And I think that that whole setup is very divisive, and what it really comes down to for everyone in this room and everyone that lives in North Reading is property values. Ultimately, if this study doesn't happen and nothing happens with the septic system, first, it's the Martins Pond area that may fall, then Concord Street and the dilapidated nature of that area in terms of commercial business. But eventually, it affects everybody's property values. in the town of North Reading, and that affects the schools and everybody else. So no matter where you live in North Reading or what you do, it affects you.